Greetings and salutations. In today's video, I demonstrate how to first set up and install a server in AWS environment running Ubuntu OS. I show you how to download and install the LAMP stack, which is on a Linux machine, and we configure Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Then we download and install both WordPress and Joomla CMS on the server and configure a domain name on each. At the end of the day, you get one server that is hosting multiple CMS websites with different names in the AWS environment. Follow along and let's get started. When you log into the AWS console and go to EC2, the first link is the EC2 dashboard. Click on Instances and then Launch Instance. When that loads, give a name that will identify the server. We will be creating an Ubuntu server, and I will select an existing key pair. I'm going to allow SSH traffic only from my IP address, but allow HTTP traffic from the internet. Everything else looks good, so hit Launch Instance. That's going to create the server, install Ubuntu, and set up our security access. Once that completes, we go back to our dashboard and click on our running instances. There is our server. If you select it, you can see there is no public IPv4 address. We will need that to access it from the internet, so click on Elastic IPs. Allocate Elastic IP and then allocate. Now we have to associate that IP with the server, so select Associate and the server you are working on. Go back to running instances and make sure you're getting a public IPv4 address now. Okay, copy that address and open up an SSH connection. I am going to use PuTTY. Paste that IP in and add the associated key file. Click Accept and log in with the username Ubuntu. Once connected, the first thing you will want to do is run an update. Then install Apache and type yes on the prompts. Then we install MySQL and type yes on the prompts. Once that completes, we install PHP, and you guessed it, type yes on the prompts. Let's check if the firewall is active with this command. It's inactive, so nothing needed on that end. Then let's restart Apache with the following command to commit the new additions. We then check the status to ensure it is up and running. We can verify by going to the IP address in another window. If you use the link within AWS, it automatically adds a HTTPS connection, so you will need to change it to just HTTP to verify, and you should get a screen as shown here. Now let's configure Apache. If you go back to your SSH terminal, in your etc. Apache 2 sites available directory, copy the 000-default.conf file to a new conf file. I will use wordpress.conf. Then let's open that file to edit it. The default document root location is var www HTML. And since we are hosting multiple websites, let's add another folder. I will call it WordPress. Next, add a line called server name and set that line to be the name that you want to be able to access the website. I will set mine as wordpress.aipsolutions.tech, and server alias is the same thing with www in front of it. Next, add your directory tag and configure it to be the WordPress folder location. Then add these options. We won't configure the website to handle SSL connections now. Next, let's go to our var www HTML location and create the folder WordPress. Once created, let's change the owner of the folder to be www-data. This is how the permissions should look. Next, we want to link the virtual host file and enable the site with this command and reload Apache. And that's it for our Apache configuration for our WordPress website. Now, let's configure MySQL. We connect to MySQL with the following command. Then we run these commands in succession. Create database WordPress. Create user WP user at localhost identified by password. Grant all privileges on WordPress.star to WP user at localhost. Flush privileges. Exit. And that's it for our database creation that our first website will be using. For greater flexibility, let's install these PHP components for our website. Once that installs, do a restart on Apache. We will download the WordPress install file, so create a source directory in our WordPress directory. This will house the WordPress download. Then download with this command and extract the file. Move the contents of the extraction to our root WordPress folder. Okay. And if we check the permissions, we can see they are not set correctly. So let's reapply our permissions. To complete our WordPress site configuration, go to the IP address of the server and add the folder that you created at the end of the URL. You will get this WordPress setup config webpage. Enter the details that you set up initially when you created the database. I was incorrectly trying the admin panel passwords, but the user we set up was WP user and the password was password. I eventually figured it out. Once you get past that, then you enter website details and the credentials for the back end of the site. Select Install WordPress, then hit Login. Log in with the credentials that you just specified. And that's it. We have our first WordPress website configured on our server. Now, let's set up another database in our MySQL, this time for our second website, a Joomla website. Connect to MySQL and you will enter similar details as before, but this time our database will be called Joomla and the user will be JM user. Everything else will be the same. And that's it. Let's go back to our var HTML directory and create a new folder, this time called Joomla. In there, create a source folder that will house our Joomla install file. Download Joomla with this command. We will have to download the unzip component with this command to unzip the file. Then unzip the Joomla installation. Move all the files from the source to the root of the Joomla folder. Then remove the downloaded zip file. And change permissions on the Joomla folder with this command. Let's configure Apache for our second website. Go to the Apache 2 sites available directory. Copy our WordPress conf file to a new file called Joomla conf and edit it. Change the folder and document root to our new folder Joomla and the server name that you want the second website to be identified by. Everything else can stay status quo. Save and commit, and then enable the conf file just as we did before and reload Apache. Complete the config on our Joomla website now. Go to our IP address and add our new Joomla folder at the end. Enter the name of the Joomla website and the details you want to use to connect to the backend. Then enter the details that we use to set up the database. Complete the installation. And test by logging into the backend. Now we have just successfully set up our second website on our single server. Now our server is set up and our two websites are up and running. But we are accessing them by IP address. How do we access by domain name? Well, we have to set up a hosted zone with A records. If you purchase your domain name through AWS, go into the Route 53 section of AWS. In there, click on Create Hosted Zone. Enter the name that you want, in our case, wordpress.aipsolutions.tech, and hit Create Hosted Zone. Once that completes, there will be two records. Add a third A record type and under the Values section, paste in our public IPv4 address. And hit Create Records. It will take some time to propagate the changes, but you can check the view status to make sure it is in sync. Let's test our record by hitting Test Record. Then select Get Response. And we get no error messages. So our wordpress.aipsolutions.tech domain name is pointing to our public IPv4 address now. Let's copy the domain name and paste it in our browser. You might get this page cannot be found error because it has not yet fully propagated. Give it some time and then try again. It works. I did the same thing for our second website. So if we copy the domain name into a new browser and paste it, that works as well. We are able to access both websites by different domain names while they are hosted on a single server. And that completes this video. Hopefully you found this video useful, and if so, please consider subscribing. This has been brought to you by AIP Solutions.